Hello, everyone. We're going to be continuing our interview with the atheist commentary. This is going to be on part two. We will again try to dissect the argument because this original interview we had with this particular atheist called the Atheist, we allowed it to kind of run kind of wild and see where it goes. And if you notice, when uh, arguing with an atheist, they're never going to want to stick to one subject, complete it, either agree to disagree or come to some kind of conclusion. They're always going to jump to something else because they know as soon as you start talking about details, and the devil is in the details, they will immediately jump to something else because they're trying to take a shot at you. And you'll see that with this particular part two of this interview. This atheist will do that a lot. But again, we will have another interview with this atheist. We're going to have a set topic, and we're going to try to beat that topic up and figure out if I'm going to convince him or he's going to convince me, or we come to some kind of agreement on a particular subject, and we're not going to take little jabs at each other, or he takes jabs at me and then runs, and I got to chase him, and that's kind of how this entire interview went. But here we go.
It's preferable that you get a subjective morality, because if you start believing, or if you get your morality from God, he tells you how to beat your slaves and to make sure that they can still walk after 2 days. Otherwise, there might be a slight punishment for you. So it's things like that where you say you get your morality from a God that says you can't wear two types of cloth. That's a stonable offense. The list of things that you go back to in this Bible, in Exodus and in Leviticus, the laws that he's put out there are just absolutely ridiculous. And if that's
So now the atheist is going to try to point out a flaw in the Bible, meaning point out a flaw in our God, because he said, if you beat your slaves and they are okay within a day or two, then it's no punishment. You're okay. And if he also says in another section that if you mix these two types of fabrics together in a garment, it's a stonable offense. So now, if you just listen to that on face value, you'll say, "Wow, that's nuts. What kind of God is this? Yeah, it can't. This God is not real. The Atheist is right, and I'm nuts, right?" But again, if you go into the actual details, look at what the topic's about, look at why this is said. Um, Now it doesn't seem so black and white that the atheist is correct and I'm wrong. For instance, in the Bible, God says about slavery, and it's not actually slavery, it's debt slavery, meaning like indentured servant, somebody owed debt to somebody. The only way to pay it off is they say they'll work for them for 7 years. And after that, they're set free, they're paid whatever they're owed, there's an agreement. And that's the type of slavery that is being talked about. Again, in the Bible, words are translated, and what we think of slavery, we're thinking what Americans did to the black people for hundreds of years, and that's not the type of slavery we're talking about. In fact, and I'm going to point this out to the atheist, and he knows this fact, that in the Bible, at the same time, it says that if anyone kidnaps somebody and forces them to work, the punishment for the person kidnapping them is death. The punishment for the person putting that person to work is death. So now there's a big contradiction to, does God allow slavery or doesn't he allow slavery? Now it makes more sense that no, they're talking about debt slavery because of this other passage that talks about actual somebody being kidnapped and enslaved, and that would be considered slavery in our definition. But debt slavery is pretty much something totally different. It's agreed upon. Um, Also, and then we're going to do more topics on the slavery situation in the Bible and what it talks about. There's another type of slavery that is dealt with when it comes to when there's a war and the captors are taken into uh, the Jews' territory and they're pretty much living with them and they're working for them. They pretty much become part of the family, and in generation they're just part of that family and group, and they work there. And again, uh, those are the ways things were done then. But the atheist is going to try to paint God in a bad picture. But as soon as we get down to explaining these things to the atheist, he's going to jump to something else because he's looking to take shots. He's not looking to stay in a corner. If we're in a boxing match, he would be like a Floyd Mayweather, where he'll hit you and try to get points. He's not going to really stick in a corner just exchange blows because there's no way he's going to win that argument. I consider myself a concrete wall, a brick wall, and I consider the atheist a piece of glass. Every time he hits into me, he's going to shatter into pieces. So there's no way he's going to want to stay and exchange blow for blow because he's going to get knocked out. So that's why he's doing these tactics. You'll see this throughout this little uh, 8 or 9 minute video where he'll just take jabs. He'll take jabs and run because he's just looking to score points. He's not looking for knockout. I want a knockout punch. I want him to either to concede and become a theist, or just tell me that he's an atheist, he hates God, and if he's real, he's not real, he doesn't care. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that knockout punch. But he's not going to allow me to do that in this context. Next time we we have a discussion, we're not going to allow that. We're going to format it a lot better. We're going to have a certain topic. We're going to stick to that topic, and it's not going to be an advantage, I guarantee, because as soon as we start talking about details, he's going to have to take back what he said about God allowing slavery. He's going to have to admit, oh, wait, looks like there's a contradiction here, because in one sense they're saying you're put to death if you have actual slavery. So it must be, I'm right, that when they're talking about slavery in the Bible, God is talking about debt slavery, and he's putting certain rules. If there's some kind of fight between the owner of the property wherever the person's working and the we'll call him the debt slave, um, and there's some kind of argument and the person gets hurt, the debt slave, and he recovers in a day or two, then obviously he didn't get hurt that bad. And you go into details of that passage, it's explained what's the ramification of if that person does actually get hurt, he loses an eye, what the loss is uh, to the master or the owner or whatever you want to call them in that situation. Remember now, if they're a debt slave and let's say they're 2 years into their uh, their servitude and they get injured badly, where they lose an eye or a tooth or something bad, they get to be set free, all their debts forgiven. They get X amount of cows, cattle, whatever they get for that time, and they get restitution. But what happens to the person, the slave master or the owner, they become they lose money. They lose out. So they're definitely going to be punished severely at that time. That's a severe punishment for them. Again, I don't mean to call them slave master, but since we're calling them a slave and we're calling the other person a master or the owner or whatever it is, that's what we're saying. And again, these type of words allow the atheist to misconstrue it or to manipulate the situation, and I'm purposely giving them the opportunity so that I can catch them. Say, oh, wait a second, I already explained to you what it is. So if I call it a slave master, and if we call this person a slave, we know that's not what we mean. Then you're trying to manipulate the truth. You're trying to twist the truth, and that's why we need to filter their lies out and catch them for really the liars that they are. I mean, unless they don't know. Some of them really don't know, and that's why we're trying to inform them. But most of them do know, and they're trying to manipulate, and that's why we have to catch them red-handed and call them liars. Because when you lie like that, and you know you're lying, you're telling saying something that's not true and trying to pass it off as truth, you're a liar. So they have to be called out. But we'll continue.
Where you're getting your morals. And I know it's not because I guarantee you work on the Sabbath. I guarantee you knock out at least 5 out of the 10 commandments you don't follow. So it's better that you can pick and choose those type of things, and that's where the subjective morality comes from. That's where we say these laws from these Bronze Aged men that had no clue what was going on in the world, and they say this laws were given from God and this morality was given from God. Absolutely not. That's why there is a prison system. That's why there is punishments and rewards on this earth, because we've chosen to live in a society that decides where the morals and laws are.
So the atheist really doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to the argument of subjective and objective morality. When we do have that discussion with him, uh, and hopefully he's listening to this and he understands that he's walking himself into a really nasty trap, because as soon as you start saying that laws are what morality is, we all know that there's plenty of immoral laws in America that exist today, that have existed for hundreds of years. I mean, don't forget about slavery laws. Uh, white people did to black people regarding laws and what fountains they can drink and what they can do. So those are all legal. So legal doesn't equal moral, and um, illegal doesn't equal immoral, right? So right now we have plenty of immoral laws. For instance, you could abort a baby in a mother's womb. That's immoral, but it's legal, and we have plenty of immoral laws. Asset forfeiture. If you have X amount of dollar and you're driving down the street and you get pulled over. I just saw a video the other day. A Marine he's a military man that had, I think, $87,000 in his trunk. And he said he had receipts for everything. He said, "Oh, this is my money. I don't trust the banks. I don't put them in the bank." They legally seized his assets. Luckily, he had some kind of clout, or some agency came to his rescue and helped him get his money back. Some kind of law firm did a pro bono. But a lot of times people get their money taken and they don't have a lawyer and they don't know how to go through the red tape to get their money back. A lot of people do lose their money, lose their house. And these are all legal things that the law allows them. They're immoral. But Mr. Teapot is trying to look to the law in society to give his morality, because he's looking for subjective morality. But if he comes up with that argument when we do discuss morality, again, he's going to be shattered to pieces and he's going to be limping home when he's done, because there's no way he's going to be able to argue subjective morality is what he wants to live by and is a good thing. He needs to understand that there is objective morality. There is morality outside of us, in spite of us, right? So it doesn't exist because of us. It already exists because whoever created us made these laws. He is the law giver, and that's already put in our heart. We all know it. We all understand it's wrong to kill, wrong to steal. Do unto others, you have them do unto you. That's already understood. People don't do it because they make excuses of why they shouldn't, or they justify it, but they know it's not true, that they shouldn't do it, that it's bad. But the atheist is going to try to spin the facts. He's going to try to do everything he can to make God look bad. But when I shine a light on what he's saying, he's going to look like he's the bad one. He's the one trying to spin everything to make God look bad because he's got an agenda. Atheists typically hate God. There's a very few that don't know anything about God. They were tricked by somebody and they didn't know any better, and then you come along and you explain things to them, they say, "Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting," and then they become theists and they leave atheism. Most of the ones I've talked to are what I call militant atheists, where they probably know God exists, they hate God, they don't want him to exist. Even if he did exist, they don't like him for whatever reason. Either they blame him for everything that goes on wrong with the world, which is not his fault. They blame him for making laws pertaining to their sexuality, to what they want to do, how they want to live. So now they are saying their morality or their choices are better than God's choices, and God's immoral and they're moral, and that's what they're trying to do here, and that's what we're going to try to persuade them that they're incorrect and to turn back from their lies. But you'll see him continue to do these things throughout this to this part two. Will continue.
And you can't say anything to a Muslim man that says it's okay for a man to marry 4 women because God decreed it through his angel Gabriel and was given to Muhammad, and from there it was given to us. So we can, the only thing you can say against that is your book said something different. Your Bronze Age book says something different.
Now, one thing you'll notice with atheists, they will bring up my book more than I'll ever bring up my book. When I first discuss uh, theism versus atheism, I do everything I can to not mention the Bible, not mention Jesus, not mention God. I try to break down the argument for what we know right now. We know about the fact that we're here. We know about morality. There's certain things we know without the book. We don't need God to know these things. We know that there was a beginning. Scientifically, we know the universe had a beginning. We know it's here, so it had to begin at some point. We know about, again, morality. That's already put in our heart. There's many things that we know. We don't need the book, but the atheist will continue to bring up my book. He'll then start bringing up other religions. And what he'll try and do is take something wrong with another religion, has nothing to do with me, and say, "Oh, look at this religion. Look what they're doing. That's not a good thing." And he'll say, "Well, since you have a religion and that's a religion, automatically you're bad because that religion did something bad." He grouped us together. And obviously, that's not a rational argument. And I would say I have nothing to do with that other religion. He can name 100 other religions that he doesn't like or whatever they say that's not good in his eyes. I might not agree with those things either. What does that have to do with what I believe in my religion? So he doesn't want to attack my religion. When he does attack my religion, he'll take little sections of a sentence in the Bible and say, "Look what it says here. Your God is bad," and then he'll move on. And I'll try to bring him back. Say, "Wait a second. What are you talking about?" For instance, the mixing of the two cloths, that was specifically for the Jews. That wasn't worldwide. Not everybody had to do that. The other people had just the moral law in their hearts. They had nothing to do with that covenant that the Jews made with God. We'll continue.
Yeah, I think you're misunderstanding a little bit about Christianity. So the two types of cloths, the slavery issue, those are all Old Testament, and they don't really um, pertain to the Christians of today. So we're not in that old covenant. So you're talking about old covenant.
Indeed, I am, because you just referred to you get your morality from God.
Yes.
So I'm going to have to ask. I need clarification. Which God are you referring to when you say you get your morality from God? You said those moral things, and we don't do those today, but that was for some other set of people. What set of rules are for your set of people?
Yeah, I think you're misunderstanding regarding
Clearly.
what happened with the Old Testament. So the Old Testament was a covenant with the Jews. There wasn't a morality thing, right? So they didn't mix fabrics because of morality. There was a set of rules that God wanted the Jews particularly to follow. No one else had to follow them in order to communicate with God, in order for God's covenant to be with the Jews. So this was like a deal. They had made a contract. They made an agreement together. So no one else in the world was to abide by these covenants, and they wouldn't make them immoral, right? So the two fabrics, somebody would be stoned if they, I'm assuming that broke that law, that covenant. But no one else in the world would. The reason those people would is because they had a deal with God. They agreed to those things. And the
So
punishment
the Ten
was
Commandments. I'm sorry to interrupt, but the Ten Commandments that were given to those set of people.
no
Do
longer for
you
us.
now? No,
I don't
you don't
abide by
follow the
them.
Ten Commandments.
I don't. Not the Ten Commandments. Now,
Okay,
wherever
okay, I
Jesus,
understand. Thank you for your clarification. And I think you're going to tell me now with the Jesus thing that you're referring to, that it says, "Have no other gods before me, but me." But you're going to tell me about this God Jesus character now. Go
one and the
ahead.
same, yes.
So now, again, he didn't want to discuss about the Ten Commandments and why it's not for us. Um, he's going to now move on to the next subject, next little jab that he wants to take about the fact that we believe that Jesus is God. And then he's going to say, "Oh, what are you, a polytheist? How can you have two different gods? I thought you only have the one God." And he knows that we claim that Jesus is God. It's just another nature of God. They're all one and the same person. And at this point, he's going to try and twist things around for the audience, for other people that are listening, in order for them to get tricked. This is really uh, something that somebody doesn't understand listens to what he's saying, and if he doesn't listen to my argument, they'll easily say, "Oh, look at these Christians, they said they believe in one God, look, they believe in multiple gods." And that's where the tricks come in, because if you're not using your brain, you're not thinking, you're not understanding the situation, you're not looking at history, you're not looking at the entire story, you're just taking a little portion of it and trying to make a judgment, you're going to be wrong. And you're going to be wrong the rest of your life that way if you only take little sections. If you don't have all the angles, you don't see everything for what it is, and only take a little section, you're going to go through life just being wrong. And that's what this atheist is doing. But I think this atheist is doing it on purpose. This atheist knows everything that I had to say. Nothing I'm going to tell him is brand new. He's heard these things before. But the fact that he's trying to spin what he's saying to be truth and mine to be lies tells you that he's trying to persuade people to become atheists. And we can get into later on why that is. Again, most of these atheists, I don't think they're evil. They're not bad people. Somehow they've been tricked. For instance, if somebody had something happen to them where some tragedy happened in their life, and then they blame God. God, how come you didn't help me? I don't believe you're real. And then all of a sudden, they don't like God. Anybody that is a Christian or believes in God, then they don't like what they have to say, and they want to shut them up. And now this becomes uh, a perpetual hatred of God because of that incident. And then when they see more things that are wrong with the world, and it just compiles, and how come God's telling these people, who to have sex with and what to do, and why is God so overbearing? And now all of a sudden, in their brain, they're painted a picture of God that is false. So they accuse God, first of all, of letting something horrible happen, where it's very possible that God couldn't help that situation. It was in God's plan for something to happen, and some evil things happen, and God, in order to allow free will, he couldn't get in there and stop that thing from happening without affecting free will. So God had a plan. His plan was never for something bad to happen, but when it does happen, he has a plan to fix it. So the atheist doesn't understand these things. They're locked into hatred, into anger. They're not using their brain. All they're thinking is, let's bash God. Let's accuse God of this thing. And it's up to me to be God's attorney. He's being accused of something. It's my job to defend God, to let him know, hey, you can't accuse him of this because of this and that, and give him facts, and kind of turn him back to reality. Now, if they want to continue to accuse God, that's up to them. I made my point that if they continue to do it, knowing that they're wrong, that God had nothing to do with it, it's not God's fault. Now they're accusing God of doing something wrong that he didn't do, and they want to like that done to them. If I accuse them of doing something that they didn't do, and they would say, hey, that's wrong. I didn't do that. I didn't kill this person. I didn't steal this. But you're accusing God of something that I'm telling you he didn't do. So that's what we have to catch him. We have to put it back on them. Would you like to have somebody did it to you? Why are you doing it to God? We have to defend God.
Yeah, so when
Wait a
Jesus
minute.
came,
God said, don't have any other, don't make any other partners to me, but you just made a partner named Jesus with this God that gives you the morality. But go on.
yeah, so on that note, that Jesus and God are not partners. They're one and the same. They just have different essences, right? But it's the same person. So they're just different. If we want to say different personalities, different parts of the same God
So
together.
Jesus said these things to the Jews. And this Jesus has been around for about 13.6 billion years. Is how long we feel that how long we think that the universe has been around. But he made this covenant with just this particular tribe. Jesus did, right?
Correct.
And he said, "Okay, I'm going to let this go on for a few thousand years, and then come back. In the year 0 BC, or let's call it 33 BC, he came back to have a new covenant, and now he chose who? He chose a certain a tribe of people, or he chose who did he give these new set of morals to?
He gave that to everybody. So that was
Oh,
for
so
anybody
let
that
me
wants
ask you
to.
this. So before Jesus, so let's say the year 0 by our Julian calendar, what set of laws were the people that weren't Israelis supposed to follow? What happens to their judgment and their morality? Do they not have anybody? Do we not have, for the 100,000 years that people have been around, like in the Homo sapien era?
You're going to see what this atheist is going to do, because if he was on accusing me of being a polytheist and we squash that, instead of acknowledging, so, oh, I guess you guys aren't polytheists, then you do believe in one God, Jesus is God to you, okay, we'll acknowledge it. He jumps immediately to the fact that Jesus, what did he do with the people before he was around? What did he do to other people that didn't have the covenant, right? So he's concerned about what happened to them, but he's not concerned about himself. What does he know about Jesus, right? He's not concerned about the arguments. He just wants to take pot shots and just little jabs to try to. I don't know what he's trying to do. What he's trying to do is probably for the average listener to hear his argument, uh, could buy into his argument, right? Because if you're a fool, you're going to hear that and say, "Oh yeah, that sounds pretty good." But if you're intelligent, if you're going to give what you're going to use what God gave you, your brain, you're going to dig deeper. So what is he talking about? What did God do with the people that didn't have the covenant? Of course, they were under the moral law. That was handled that way. Um, Now, after Jesus came, everybody's under the Jesus law that they have to follow Jesus, right? So no one's it's for everybody. Now you have the moral law, but morally, if you're a moral person, you can't accuse Jesus of not being there. You can't accuse him of never existing. You can't accuse him of not sacrificing himself for you, right? You're becoming a liar. You're breaking the moral law by not accepting Jesus, right? Because morally, if somebody did that for you, they took away your sin, they paid for your sin, which that's what Jesus did for us. You would acknowledge that and you would thank that person morally because they did something good for you. You have to acknowledge it. You can't say, "Oh, you didn't do nothing for me. Who are you, Jesus?" Right? That would be immoral because if somebody did that for him and he sacrificed himself for somebody and that person said, "Oh, you never did nothing for me," that would be immoral. He wouldn't like that. So that's what he's doing to Jesus. It's in essence, he's breaking the moral law because he's denying what Jesus did. But you're going to see jab after jab with no knockout punch. And this will continue probably throughout the other parts. But we're going to break them all down and then go back to each one in a separate video and say, okay, let's talk about the specific topic. We're going to box you in. There's nowhere to run.
And we've only had rules for the past 2,000 years. So 90,000 years, people were going around clubbing each over their head and raping and pillaging, but they didn't have any morality. So that was all okay. And then Jesus came
Absolutely.
around about 2,000 years ago to give everybody some rules.
Now, I see why you would be an atheist, yeah, because I think everything you're saying is incorrect. So God would judge people on what they know. So if a person is not a Jew and didn't get the covenant, they would just fall under the moral law, meaning that every human being knows what's right and wrong.
Hold
Morality
on.
is
I'm
written on
sorry.
their
I really
heart.
have to interrupt. I've got to stop you there. That move isn't available to you because you just told me that there is no objective or the objective morality comes from God. And now you just said, well, it's the moral law. So that
Given by God.
wait a
That's given by
minute.
God. Yeah. I see. I understand. So
You
God,
you just changed gears on me. You said there was no there or the only way we can have morals is if it was given by God. And this Jesus fellow gave it to you about 2,000 years ago and to some Bronze Age illiterate Middle Eastern men. And now since then we have to follow these laws. But everybody else who wasn't Jewish pre 2000, yeah, they
I think I've been pretty clear that there is a moral law. The moral law is given by God. Everybody understands the moral law. But the atheist knows I have him. He's going to try and twist it to say, wait a second, how do those people know? I thought only God gave it to them. I already explained that God put it in their heart. It's all outside of them, and they understand it because it's been put inside of them. Right? It's not subjective. It's already there. It's everywhere. Everybody knows, except for animals and maybe people that don't have developed brains and don't understand certain things and concepts, then that's fine. They're not going to be judged that way. But everybody else understands the moral law. But the atheist, because he's slippery, because he's sneaky, he's going to try to twist things around. But and again, I'm allowing him to do this right now. Next time we have a conversation, that's not going to happen.
use their own morality, which you said doesn't exist.
all right, I'll clarify. It's my fault that you're
Please do. And
misunderstanding.
I'm sorry for
So,
interrupting because I just,
no, no,
my
I'm glad you
eyebrows
did.
are way above my forehead right now, and I'm trying to bring them back down.
I'm glad you did interrupt me. So, all humans are given in their heart the knowledge of right and wrong. That's given to them by God, meaning that they understand what objective morality is.
Because one
Now,
guy, he ate an apple.
oh no, because God,
You see that little shot right there? The one guy ate an apple has nothing to do with the moral argument. These are little jabs. These are little stingers that he's going to try and take a swing at, and hopefully it lands. I'm not even sure what he was swinging at to talk about the Adam and Eve story, because one guy ate an apple, didn't give morality. Morality is always there. God is moral. God is good. God, morality and the goodness of God pre-existed the universe, pre-existed Adam, pre-existed everything, right? Anything opposite of God would be evil. Opposite of good would be evil. So I'm not sure where he's coming up with this Adam ate the apple. So, but again, just so you can understand the character of an atheist, of how they argue and where to defeat them.
put that in our heart to know what's right and wrong. To rape somebody is wrong. To steal is wrong. We know what's right and what's wrong. Just it's written in our heart, meaning as a human being, you already understand this. But a animal probably doesn't understand it because of our intellect, our brain. God put that in our brain. Now that's separate from this covenant with the Jews. The reason that they have a different set of rules is because they agreed to these set of rules. And with these set of rules came responsibilities, came a pact with God. So there was understanding, and they're going to be judged differently because they made a separate agreement. The other people that are not Jews that didn't make the pact will be just judged on their morality, on do they do what is right. Hopefully that's
This
clear enough.
Yeah, it's super clear what you've made it super clear, but it just sounds like a bunch of made up stuff some men would make up based on how they want society to act.
Now, again, I'm not really sure what it means. Some men made up. I'm saying objective morality exists without men. I'm not sure what men. Is he saying that I made it up? Is he saying other men made that up? Doesn't he admit that there is objective morality? And maybe that's what we have to get down to. We have to get him to admit that there is objective morality. And once we get that down, we're going to build on top of that. So now, when we do argue, let's say a consistent argument with somebody that's an atheist, we'll take this AT POTUS as kind of like a project to see what we'll do with him. You know, it might take years, might take 20 years, it'll take a long time. But we're going to document through video, in writing. He's going to have to agree that, okay, he said this. And anytime he says something foolish that contradicts what he said before, let's say we get him to agree to that there is objective morality, and that's my goal, to get him to admit to that. And I think I can be successful. Even though he seems like he's irrational, he is rational. He does understand. He's got an agenda, and as long as I allow him to persist in his agenda, he's going to continue to exercise his agenda. As soon as I box him in and say, okay, is this right? Is this wrong? Is this true? Is this false? And then show him the facts and say, okay, examine it. You're smart enough to understand it. And once he says, okay, yes, I admit there is such a thing as objective morality. We all agree on what morality is, even though we deny it. Once we get him to admit that, he can't say things like, oh, these men wrote it down, right? Because now this is just foolish talk. I didn't say anything about any men wrote down anything. As far as the covenant, I told him that has nothing to do with morality. The mixing of the cloths or whatever rules that God gave to Jews had nothing to do with the morality. That was agreement. And I think I was clear, and he said he knew I was clear. And then he came back with a ridiculous argument regarding what men wrote. But again, this is the reason I'm doing this, is so we can break down the argument and we can show exactly where his argument's fallen apart. And this is a good way to win these arguments and really to shut them up. We're not necessarily looking to convince them. And for a while, I was thinking that I need to convert them, to convince them. Now I've taken a different approach. I think I'm here to shut them up, pretty much to be that other voice opposite of their voice. Because when their voice goes out on the internet, goes out in the world, and says God is not real and accuses God of things, if somebody's not there like me and others that want to defend God, then easily another person that maybe is not an atheist, maybe agnostic, maybe is a Christian but doesn't, maybe is thinking to not buy into the Christianity or believe in God, they can easily be persuaded by these type of arguments. But if they hear my argument and his argument side by side, then maybe it's not going to be as easy for them to lean towards atheism. And really, maybe that's my true calling, or everybody's true calling should be to be that other voice, that other defense. So when somebody does think about becoming an atheist and leave Christianity, or maybe want to go to Christianity, but because of all these atheists with these talking points, they don't hear the other side, then they may lean to atheism. So we have to be that other opposing viewpoint to show other people the truth and pretty much shut down the argument of the atheist and point out that it's a lie. Now, if somebody still wants to believe it, and if the atheist wants to continue in their lie, in their sin against God, that's up to them. Nothing we can do other than maybe point out, kind of ask them why they're doing that. If they know they lost the argument, why are they doing it? Can we get them to admit that they hate God? And there are some atheists that say, yeah, we think that God exists, but I hate him. Okay, that's at least one step past a lie. At least now you admit that you hate God, even if he does exist. And now we got to try and work on why they hate God. Now we have to defend them in a different way. So every person you speak to, you have to see where they're coming from. You know, to somebody that is agnostic, you're going to speak different to them. To somebody that's an atheist, you speak different. If somebody has a different religion, if it's a monotheistic religion, you speak different. If it's a theist, if it's a you know, one God, a theist um, religion, then you you speak to them differently if they have one God. I'm sorry, polytheist is multiple gods. Monotheist would be one God. So you speak to each one of those different because there's a different talking point, different argument. We got to see where they're coming from, and but at the end of the day, anytime they say a lie, accusation, our job is to not shut them up, but kind of have their argument be against our argument and let their argument just shatter into pieces. They can say it all they want. You know, we as Christians believe in free speech, free will. We never want to shut somebody up, right? Anytime you shut somebody up, anytime you cut somebody's tongue out, you only admit that you don't like what he has to say because it's probably true. So I always encourage everybody to allow free speech to happen, even if it's vile, the worst thing possible. Let them say it because the more they talk, the more they're going to show what they are, and the world will know what they are. So let everybody have free speech, say what they want, do what they want, as long as they don't touch anybody, as long as they don't hurt anybody directly. I believe in free society, free will, and God believes in free will as well and free society. So let them talk, just oppose them. Here we go.
Like, there's no basis for what you're saying. Jesus said in your Bible, I came to fulfill the law, not to, not one, and something to the effect of not one letter will be changed and everything will be fulfilled. But you just went and sliced and diced your entire Old Testament, saying, not for me, for thee, for the Israelis, and not for everybody in the world, just a certain set of tribes that happen to win lots of wars based on their god figure. You know, it just sounds like uh, every other religion that's out there that doesn't say those things. It's ridiculous.
So now the atheists are going to try to go back to saying that Jesus changed something. So if you know if he said something that was opposing, you know, he didn't allow the fabric mixing of the fabric to be stoned. That means he changed it. No, he fulfilled it. The reason that was there was in preparation for Jesus. That covenant was there, so Jesus comes through the Jews, and then once he comes through them, that is finished. It's completed. Now he is that covenant. Now we follow Jesus. We don't follow the laws of the covenant, right? So he's thinking, oh, then we should still go follow those because what? How, I thought Jesus not going to change them. No, Jesus fulfilled them. They were there for him. Now the Jews still have to follow those laws because for them Jesus is not God. It's not a fulfillment. They're still waiting. But for us Christians, we're done with those laws. We don't need them. We have Jesus. So the atheist, I think, understands these points, but wants to try to paint Jesus in a bad light. He wants to try to twist the truth, and that's what they do. And you got to point them out. You got to say, wait, this is how it is. Are you still saying that Jesus changed something? No, he didn't change nothing. He fulfilled it. So it's two different things.
That a grown man, an educated man in the year nearly 2022, would say and believe these things.
Now, I didn't say anything that was incorrect. I'm telling the atheist exactly what the situation is. I'm pointing it out. It's common knowledge. It's not, I didn't come up with any of this. There's plenty of people before me that study these things. They have proof for these things. It has nothing to do with me. But for him to think that, you know, in year 2021 we're coming up with these crazy ideas, he didn't point out where the crazy ideas are. And he never will. He's going to take little shots. He's going to call them crazy ideas. As soon as I show him that ideas aren't crazy, he's not going to acknowledge what I just said. He's going to move on to his next talking point, and next one, and next one, and so on. So in interviewing with this atheist, in talking to him, uh, our mission is to bring him back to reality, to bring him back uh, to at least teach him to stop making little shots. Stay in the fight. Don't make a little jab at me and run away. Stay in there. Let's duke it out. Let's go toe to toe at this argument about Jesus uh, changing the law and now trying to make me look like I'm a hypocrite and Jesus is a hypocrite and uh, the fact that these laws have changed, but really they haven't. They got fulfilled, and he will never stay in that fight. And really, he's got no as a atheist, he's got no real right to stay in that fight. If he doesn't believe in the Bible, he shouldn't really concern himself with that law and what Jesus said. He should let me know what he believes as far as atheism and theism. But he has no argument for atheism because there is no argument for it. They just said you're wrong. Then all right, convert me to your atheistic thought religion. Show me why I'm wrong. I mean, you're going to come out with evolution for me, which I'll destroy. What are you going to come up with to argue that there is no God? Everything points to God. But the cool thing about how God did is he gave us enough information to believe in him, but not too much to not be able to doubt it. You see, so he created the universe. He made it very large to show his power. He created very complicated things. He showed you that there was a beginning, and you know that he did certain things that you have to almost put the puzzle together. But if you don't want to put the puzzle together, you could not try hard, not with like no effort at all. You could just kind of say, "Oh, this doesn't exist. This is not going to work. My viewpoint doesn't work." Then it's his responsibility as an atheist to show me what does work, right? Then he has to show me what his viewpoint is. Atheists will always tell you you're wrong, but never tell you why you're wrong and what is right. They'll just say, well, we don't really know. We're still waiting for the science and technology to give us that information, but we know you're wrong. So it doesn't make sense that if they don't know how we're wrong, they can't prove us wrong. How do they know we're wrong? And that's going to be a hot debate with an atheist to show us how we're wrong, just because we have certain proofs. Now, what they could do is say, well, then if you're saying you're right, then maybe Zeus is right, or maybe Greek mythology or other religions are right. And then we can say, well, good. Once you think that there is possibility of a God, let's examine which one it is, and then we'll show you that the Christian God is the most likely one. All the rest is a lie. And then we'll go back to his atheism to see what else he has to the Christian God. So this way, when we pinpoint that our God is the best one of all the choices, he can't come back and say, oh, how about this God? How about that God? So we already discussed that. We had you agree that out of all the gods and religions, this one is the most probable. This one has the most facts, is the most logical. Now, if you still think it doesn't exist, show me why. Do you believe in a multiverse? Do you believe that the universe existed forever? It never had a beginning. We can get into that argument, but we need to somehow pinpoint this atheist and other atheists into a corner. We just say, okay, is this what you're saying? All right, we're documenting this. You can't change it. If you need to change this, we need to come back and reverse this whole conversation if you found new evidence that you don't believe in this anymore. But from now on, during our conversation, this thing that you said, this statement has to hold true. You have to be consistent. You can't contradict yourself. You can't then contradict a statement unless you need to change a statement. You need to edit it. You need to amend it. That's fine. I can amend my theories every day. If I have new information, I have to amend them. But then I can't move forward and contradict them, right? Now I can contradict what I said in the past before the amendment because now I have a amended viewpoint. So I will allow them to amend, but I'm not going to allow them to contradict during the argument. If 10 minutes ago he said one thing and now he says another, we have to say, wait a second, we got a contradiction. And that's where we filter their lives, right? We take in their information, we what I call slice and dice. You really cut it up into pieces, you examine it, you show it to them, and show them that if they're going to want to discuss something like this and they're serious, they need to be consistent and they can't contradict. And I'm going to do everything I can to never contradict myself. Anytime I contradict myself, I expect to be caught. I expect to make amends. I need to go back and edit and repair that contradiction. But the atheist will contradict every other sentence. Every word that comes out of their mouth is a contradiction to another one because they're just looking to disprove God while I'm looking for the truth. So hopefully we're all going to be looking for the truth. Thank you for listening. Sorry if I rambled, but we're going to continue on with this as a learning experience as we break down the atheist, and then hopefully later on this particular atheist will be a Christian, and hopefully he will be a soldier for God. And that's really the ultimate goal, to take every atheist, to make them into a Christian, and then make them into a soldier, because then they're going to bring in other atheists, and usually the atheist, the one that didn't believe, I've noticed, has become the best Christian, the best asset for God, because they already know the talking points of the atheist. They already been there, and then when they come to Christianity, they're going to destroy the lies of the atheists because they already said those lies. They know those lies. So I'm hoping that Mr. Teapot will be an asset one day for God. But we'll continue working on him, continue chipping away. And again, we need to chip away at all of them. Everybody needs to kind of take on, every Christian should take on an atheist project. Now, it's not for everybody because it should be for everybody, but it is difficult because it takes a lot of energy. You have to think. But I've gotten to enjoy that wrestling match. I'm competitive when I played sports. I didn't particularly like the sport, but I love the competition. I like that adrenaline rush. I like that. For whatever reason, I like that that battle because it tested my will, tested my ability to exert my will on somebody else. Not to say we're exerting our will on atheists, but there is a battle going on, right? Because we're now battling for truth. I'm not battling for me. If I'm playing basketball, I'm trying to win a game, score more points than the other one. I am imposing my will on that other team. But if I'm talking about theism and atheism, we're talking about truth. So I'm trying to find the truth where the atheist is probably trying to hide the truth. So my now objective isn't to score more points. My objective is to shine a light on the truth and show the atheist where they're wrong. And anytime they come back to that same point that they try to twist the truth, I'm going to catch them red-handed again. Say, wait a second, did I already catch you on this? Didn't I shame you? Why do you continue to do this? To the point where they won't ever come back to that point again with anybody, because they never know that next person might know that trick. They're gonna have to find another trick to play on them. So it's a slow, methodical method of just kind of beating them down, chipping away at them. I don't think there's going to be any knockout punch with this particular atheist. I think it's going to be a series of blows that will chip away at him to a point where he's going to give in and know that he's wrong, and then come back to God and hopefully become a warrior. But please understand how important these type of things are in your daily life, to look for people that are atheists, family members, friends, to have these conversations. Someone might not be willing, but do everything you can to pull in that conversation. You need to do your homework, study apologetics, study the argument. Don't go into an argument and lose, because that'll be the worst thing you can do. That'll give them more fuel. We need to prepare the soldier for the battle in order for them to be successful and not be counterproductive. I've had many Christians that I've spoke to that, and I've heard them talk to other atheists that sometimes do more harm than good by making a terrible argument. And I'm like, wow, that's a horrible way to argue because you just strengthen them. So sometimes I have to step in and say, wait a second, that's not right, Mr. Christian. You gotta, you're wrong in the way you're coming up to the atheist. A lot of times I'll hear Christians say, pray, uh, pray to God that you believe. That I think, to me, that's the worst possible thing you can say to an atheist. So atheist doesn't believe in God. You're asking him to pray for some miraculous thing to happen to that atheist for God to reveal himself. I don't think God wants to reveal himself, or else he would have done that to every single atheist. They'd have a knock at the door and it would be God, right? So I don't like that. What I'd like to see them is to rationalize God in their mind. Once they have a good, strong foundation, then you can be a solid Christian. You can build up from there. I know a lot of Christians that believe in God but don't know anything about God. If you ask them questions, if an atheist debates them, an atheist will destroy them, because really they'll just say, "Pray, I believe in God," right? Their talking points are terrible because they have no real argument, and we need to fix those type of Christians. And I blame the church I used to go to, and I think I will have uh, a a video just on the church I used to go to show how terrible of a church it was. That it made me a very weak Christian. I used to belong to the Assyrian Catholic Church of the East, and that church didn't ever talk about apologetics. Didn't ever talk about. Didn't teach me anything about who God is. It just read from the Bible, little passages, did a lot of singing, and that's what the mass consisted of. The priest would, say some some things on whatever's happening in the church, and then reread the passage that he read to us. Maybe a small little explanation, and that's fine. Give us your donations, and away you go, because they weren't creating soldiers, they were creating members for their church to grow. Once I understood that, I left that church, and actually I don't belong to any church. So hopefully someday I will find a good church or start a church or ministry that is true to God. But at this point, I'm pretty much a wandering Christian with no home, which is fine. But most churches, most Christians that come from this type of teaching of just, you know, uh, Bible based without understanding the Bible, understanding God through logic, through philosophy, are very weak Christians because they can't argue against somebody else. And a lot of them, they don't care about arguing with an atheist or somebody who doesn't believe, because to them it's a bother. It's like they already are Christians, they're saved, let God save the other people. They could care less. And there's plenty of passages in the Bible that show that those people will actually go to hell, that Jesus will say to them, "Get away from me, I never knew you." But sorry for the lengthy talk, but hopefully you got something out of it. See you on the next one. Thank you.